Sure. I think one, I think there's an invasion of the whole conversation with gender theory and queer theory that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the medical legitimacy of what is actually an aesthetic medical intervention. Like, you think that it's very unlike tattoos, but tattoos are aesthetic, changes, permanent changes to your body, just as hormone treatment or surgery to change the appearance um, uh, of your body or your sexual organs. That is an aesthetic change. It doesn't actually change the essence of your genetic makeup. It doesn't change the way you think about yourself necessarily as much as it is. It's essentially like affirmation through visual confirmation for yourself, if that makes any
I
sense.
mean, partially, but I think
Like, it
it
doesn't
comes
change
really, really
your.
close. No, I understand what you're saying, but it comes really, really close to downplaying the importance that it has to the one psychology and one sense of comfortability in their own body, and that's
But
the
we'd have to prove
purpose, the
that.
ultimate goal of it. One, two, it's not obvious how that's any more different than doing corrective surgery for a person with a cleft palate, right? You can say it's an aesthetic change, but that doesn't change the fact that
No,
it actually is going to hold on. It doesn't change the fact that it actually has a very well documented relationship with a person feeling more comfortable in their own body, and it has all kinds of implications for how they're going to be perceived socially, right? Because if you have an obvious deformity like that, if I can call it that without being too politically incorrect, right? Like that's going to have all kinds of implications for your self-esteem. That's going to have all kinds of implications for how you feel about yourself. That's going to have all kinds of implications for how other people perceive you. And there's a lot of those dynamics and dimensions going on with people who transition as well. It's not
um,
mere. It is aesthetic, but it's not merely aesthetic because of the nuanced relationship that it has with a person's self confidence and how they're going to be perceived socially, which
sure.
interacts in complex ways.
And with the cleft palate example, that's if you long enough to actually even decide that you can get a surgery for it. The cleft palate surgeries are usually done on children and infants because, well, infants actually, because
Why?
usually
Why?
because
Why
they're
though?
unable
Why?
to suckle on, they usually die from malnutrition.
That's part of
Or
it,
that
but that's not the only
it,
reason why. But also, you have an operation on very young
uh,
children who can't make the decision for themselves, right?
yeah, but this is a life saving intervention.
But that's
Like, this is a
exactly how
functional
these
change.
people. I know you
Hold
disagree.
on,
I know
no,
you
hold on, hold
disagree
on,
with it,
hold on.
but let me just make this point real quick. It's a
We're
quick
not
point.
talking
It's a
about the
quick point.
infant's self perception.
I Okay, I understand that, but no, but it's gonna. You're right. The infant doesn't have the self perception when they're first born. You're right about that, but they're going to have a self perception later, and we know that because we know how
If
development
they
works,
live.
and right. You're right. But what my point is this is exactly, and you may disagree with it for various different reasons, but this is exactly how the people who are promoting this feel that that gender affirmation care, as they call it, they think it plays an analogous role in the life of the trans or non-binary person as the corrective surgery for cleft palate has in the life of the relevant infant in question. That's how they think of it fundamentally.
But
They
they
may
would
be
have to
wrong, but that's
demonstrate.
how they think of it.
Okay, that might be how they think of it, but I think there's a very easy logical test we can apply to this. Do people commit suicide less or more after surgery?
For trans people or just in general.
For trans people.
The statistics that I saw said that the rate of suicidality goes up after surgery.
So then, how can we possibly make the claim that the actual affirmation of that person's self perception would be beneficial to them?
Well,
Like,
so
objectively
what makes
beneficial?
what makes so what makes it hard is it's not clear if the reason why it goes up is because they got surgery or it's because of a confluence of other factors. You
Uh
would
huh.
have to know that information in order to complete the argument that you're implying. But at this point, you could say that it's possible that the the one of the biggest intended outcomes of the surgery fails in a statistically significant number of cases. And that's why the rate of suicidality goes up. That is a possible explanation, not a confirmed one. And if that is true, then it would underscore the point you're making. for sure. But there are
I
other
think.
possible explanations that have more to do with the fact that people, a lot of trans and non-binary people post-surgery are still facing various forms of persecution and discrimination despite the body transformations, and
I
that is
mean,
negatively impacting their psychology because they've already done the permanent thing and still haven't changed. It still hasn't fundamentally changed because
uh-huh.
it's not just about their affirmation. That's not the only reason why people undergo transition. There is
Hmm.
a component about how they're going to be received socially as well, right? And so that is interacting, and that's why I tried to bring that up with the analogy. I know you got to go soon, so I'm gonna let you have the last word. I promise this time
Yeah,
we'll get it.
sweet. Just to wrap it up real quick. One, as far as I don't think that um, the necessary lack of concrete um, causation of that suicidality rate is necessarily detracting from my point, as much as it is complete evidence that the burden of proof has not been met in their claim. They're the one making they're the ones making the propositional claim that this gender affirming surgery is objectively beneficial. The fact that we cannot answer those questions, especially the question that I asked, is, I mean, if we're using logical principles, the burden of proof lies on the person making the claim. I'm not the one making the claim, they are. And I think that's an obvious gaping hole in it. And two, even if you are, if you do end up looking like a woman and having a sexual organ similar to a woman, the vast majority of men are heterosexual. If they're going to be choosing partners, it doesn't matter if you look the part. I mean, and there are also women that look the part far better than other women, let alone men who've transitioned into being women. So either way, that discrimination, which is completely justifiable, if you don't want to sleep with someone or have children with someone, or look at a person a certain way, you are not obliged to do so just because they want you to. It's like you're not only competing
Yeah,
against
but
women, it's like, which most
there
people
are
aren't attractive. Like, most people are of average
you might
attractiveness. It's like
yeah
there are
you might be
people who are.
shocked
I
you
might be
might be
shocked to
shocked
what?
to know this. You might be shocked to know
What?
this, but there are a lot of men who are attracted to trans women
There are a lot.
who have male anatomy, by the way.
If we're defining a lot by more than five, yes, there are a lot. But if we're talking about
No. I mean, no, it's
their
no. I think
proportion in,
I think you be you this the amount of men who who are attracted to that, I think would shock you.
uh,
To be clear with you,
I
bro.
mean, if it's
I
in the
live in San
double
Francisco,
digits, I
bro.
would
I've had
be,
discussions. I've also looked at the
surprised.
data. But Deborah So actually, who opposes a lot of the things, who's kind of on your side on a lot of this, actually
Hmm.
points this out too because she's a sexologist, she's a sex researcher, um, and former academic sex researcher. But the data is clear on this. That there are actually men, and they consider themselves straight, which is a whole another fun conversation. Because what they're attracted to is the most effeminized version of a biological male possible. And so it's the feminine energy that they're going for, even though this person is male. It's the fact that they present as female that they are attracted to, at least partially. That's interesting. That's
But
fascinating,
do you
actually.
happen to remember what, like, the statistical breakdown is for that?
No, and I'm gonna find
No.
it for our
Okay.
part two because we're gonna
Yeah.
end up doing a part two because you got to go.
Yeah. I have to go.
Um, so